first time? Here for the first time? Sweet. Thank you. Welcome. So most of you have been here before. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. This is 1 Million Cups. We have a really similar platform, and it's always the same. We're going to have two speakers. They're going to do a 6-minute presentation, and then we'll open up the floor for questions, answers, advice, suggestion, comments. Just raise your hand or look for Chad or myself or Debbie on the sides. We'll be running the mics, and we'll pass them to you, and go ahead and give your feedback, ask your questions to our presenters. That's completely why we're here. This week we have two really dynamic speakers, two powerful women. And without any further ado, I think we got everything covered. Callista Rader with 21 Vision.
There we go. My name is Callista Rader, and I am the founder and lead learner of 21 Vision Education. So what I do is I provide consulting services to schools and teachers so that we can redefine what learning looks like for today's kids. Because so often kids are experiencing an education that is like a job for them. And so what I do is provide training to teachers so they can turn that job into a passion instead. In every school or in every classroom, you can pretty much break down the students into about 3 groups. There's shades of gray in between all of them, but for the most part, you're going to have your high flyers. These are the kids that learning comes pretty easy to. They can do lots of things fairly easily, and they do everything. The next group are the students that can compete with those students that are the high flyers, but they have to work at it. They have to put in a little bit of effort, but you know, they do a great job, and they can just go right along with them. And then the third group are the students that struggle. These are the kids that learning in the traditional way just doesn't work. They are usually kids that have cards stacked up against them, and they're trying to overcome that, but it's very difficult for them. I want to tell you a story about a boy named Sean. Sean was that third group of students. Whenever he was in elementary school, he had all sorts of things that were keeping him from being able to be successful. He was from a single parent home. He received free lunches. He had a learning disability. And so whenever teachers saw his name on the roster, they just cringed because he didn't have anything, but he had a reputation. And whenever Sean left elementary school, same kind of thing in middle school. He was just going through there, you know, starting to cause some problems, especially in the classrooms, lunchrooms, stuff like that. And then whenever he went to high school, it could have went one way. He was going to a very large high school, 2,000 kids. And so what could have happened was he could have been swallowed. He was already at a very high risk of dropping out. He probably read at about a 5th grade reading level going into 9th grade. But things changed for him because that year, his school adopted a 1-to-1 technology program where they gave every kid a laptop. Okay, so first, now Sean has something that he wouldn't have been able to afford on his own. But the school knew that I can't just hand kids a device and then expect it to change anything in the classroom. What I'm going to have to do is teach differently. So the teachers went through a process called project-based learning in which they rewrote their curriculum so it mimicked the real world instead of talking at kids or expecting them to read information and then answer questions in the back of the book. It was something that was real life. So in the spring of Sean's freshman year, I was at an art walk. And in this art walk, it was, you know, it's community-sponsored event. There was a group that was handing out flyers. There was a video production contest, and they needed people that were there at the art walk to go and vote on what was the best video that they had produced there. I took the flyer, looked through the list of names, and these were all adults, amateurs that were involved in this, and there's Sean's name. So Sean has had something that has changed for him. Instead of going through the traditional learning experience that he's always had, now what he's had is someone who has helped him to recognize that learning can be a passion, and he has also done something that's entirely on his own, competed against adults, that's made a difference in his life. So learning became, again, not something that was jumping through the hoops, but it was a passion for him. What happened was they took the brick and mortar classroom and they changed it into a real life experience. This kind of thing happens regularly with students like Sean, but they don't always have a happy ending. So what I do is provide training to teachers so that they can mimic the project-based learning experience. And what happens whenever we were in school, and what we're probably most familiar with, is teachers receive a list of standards, and these are the standards that we teach. But they're looked at as a to-do list. We need to cover this, we need to cover that, and we go on down the list. But whenever we employ the project-based learning, what happens is whenever we get this list of standards, instead of thinking, okay, we're going to cover these things on this date, we look at, all right, how does a professional use this in the real world? How does a historian use this information about this particular event in history? How does a mathematician, a scientist, all of those different real life roles use this information? And then they base that idea around a real world problem or a driving question that they ask kids to solve using in-depth inquiry. So they are researching information and then presenting that to an authentic audience. So instead of getting up and presenting to my classmates and my teacher, if I am learning, for example, I know a group of students right now that are learning about the Cold War. They are doing research on that, and instead of taking a test, what they're going to do is hold a debate about different events that happen there, maybe controversy and that sort of thing. And Westminster professors are going to be the judges of their debate because they are the experts there. So those are the kinds of things that take place in the classroom instead of, like I said, reading, taking notes, and all of that. With 21 Vision, what I do is provide the different learning model in different ways. So I do face-to-face partnerships with schools and with teachers, universities, where I come in and provide training. That works if we're able to physically meet face-to-face, but then I also have online components, like online classes that teachers can take. I also hold meetings as a digital coach using Skype, FaceTime, Hangouts, whatever it might be, because the networks are so different in so many different schools that we have to find what works there. The things that we cover are all 21st century skills. It's powered by technology. It's whenever students are using devices, but it's not that the students have the devices, it's how they're using them. All of us use technology in different ways every day, and we don't even think about it, because what is taking the center stage is really what we're doing with it. And that's what has to happen in the classroom too. What we do is take the learning experience, that is the driver, and then this thing is just what is riding in the passenger seat. So we're covering things like 21st century fluencies, design thinking, any kind of real world experience and how those are used. I told you about bringing professionals together in a real world experience, and this is how I do that. I have a database in which real world professionals can just sign up online. It feeds the database and then partner up classrooms with those professionals, because whenever you're thinking about having students, a group of fifth graders I know, that are redeveloping ways that they can purify water and then presenting that creation back to groups of wastewater treatment professionals. Does everybody know them? No. So we have to have a database of those people who are available just to quickly either spend a day in the classroom hearing about these projects and then vetting, yes, that will work, or no, it won't, sending kids back through the design process, or maybe just going in through FaceTime or a Google Hangout to do the same thing. So the physical location doesn't really matter with this business. So to wrap it all up, I want you to think about one thing here. Whenever we're thinking about change over time, our kindergartners are going to retire in the year 2074. So I want you to think about all of the change that they're going to experience in their lifetime, but then also in their career choice. And that's why we have to change the way that kids are learning, so that we are empowering kids, so that learning, again, becomes a passion instead of a job.
Very good.
Callista, I think this is such a great program, but I want to know, can you clarify the way that you provide your services?
Whenever I was mentioning earlier that I do online and face-to-face, whatever it might be. So one and done kind of training is not effective. There's only about a 10% effect rate whenever I'm standing in front of a group and I say, this is what you have to do. But instead, if I am partnering where I come back into the school or the classroom, or maybe we just do that online, whatever it is, on a monthly basis, so that you know that I'm there for you whenever you need it through phone call or email or whatever it is, then we're going to have an 80% rate of effect of change. So what I do is usually have a partnership developed with a classroom, a district, whatever that is, and then if I'm able to physically go there, that's great. But if we have opportunity where I can provide the same services online through either online classes or also through those virtual meetings, that's available as well.
So when a school district is interested in your services and you market how you can change their education for the better, how do you quantify those results? Do you see differences in disciplinary action as well as standardized test scores?
Standardized test scores are there. Personally, I don't like to look at the standardized test scores because there's lots of reasons. People are kind of snickering out there, so I'm preaching to the choir here probably. But there is a lot of data that is supportive of this whenever it comes to standardized testing. There's also higher engagement levels of students, so that it's not just whenever you walk into the classroom and you see the Charlie Brown episode where the teacher is wah, 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 and the kids are really not paying attention at all. That kind of thing doesn't take place. Also, discipline rates typically go down. In a school district that I worked with, whenever we employed this, we saw a 25% drop in discipline rates, referrals to the office.
I have a question. Because learning is becoming very focused towards the achievement level of testing, do you find it hard to get into some schools, especially high schools, junior highs and elementaries, because everything that they're doing is trying to increase those test scores for their federal funding versus really trying to teach a kid a new way to learn that will be helpful the rest of his life?
Usually, it's not the administrators that have an issue with that, it's the teachers, because they've been doing what works for a very long time, and they're afraid to change because they're afraid of taking that drop. And I will tell you that all of the data that I have shows that initially you will experience a drop, but then after the teachers really begin to utilize this, then your test scores are going to continue to rise and just continue and continue instead of plateauing. So that is the case, honestly, you always have a dip in test scores. If you get a new textbook, you'll have a dip in test scores. So that is something that happens.
Do you find that once you're invited into a school, then they go ahead and let you do throughout the school the same thing as opposed to just one or two certain classes?
Every situation is different. And so some schools, they may want me to focus at particular grade levels, where some schools want an entire district redevelopment. So it depends on what's going on there.
What is your market like? Are you mostly local or are you national?
Right now, I am mostly local within the state of Missouri, but it doesn't have to be that way. Because we have the ability to do so much online, I could be working in California from my couch here in Missouri. So it doesn't really matter.
Can I ask one more question? Okay. Are you looking for specific types of professionals for your database or?
Anything. Mm-hmm.
Is this a one-person operation?
Right.
Or
Right now it
can
is.
you scale this?
I can. Whenever there's need for growth, then bringing more people on to be those facilitators, that's a possibility. But right now, my client base is such that one person can handle it.
How do you train and implement those facilitators in other communities?
What I do is build a team that recognizes what 21st century learning really is. It encompasses the things like project-based learning. They need to not necessarily be able to use the technology well, but they need to understand its power. That's the bigger thing there. And I usually will model for others that I'm training how they can begin to do the same thing. So there's a lot of modeling where I am providing training and then they're kind of as an apprenticeship working right along beside me.
Go ahead.
Cody Stringer with Mercy. I guess I have less a question and more just thinking out loud here. But I saw a guy named Mike Johnston speak up in Kansas City a couple weeks ago, and he teaches drum lessons. And obviously drum lessons are a lot different from educating educators, but he has a subscription-based service where he does streaming video lessons. He's condensed what really could be highly personalized lessons down into really a set of best practices, and then transmits this out now, I think, to just under 15,000 subscribers twice a week. And so he's been able to really scale just by himself by boiling it down to what's really necessary and then scaling via the web. And so you kind of touched on scalability and bringing on new people, but I think there's also an opportunity to really take this almost wholly virtually and have a truly scalable platform.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Calista, as we talked yesterday, and I think this is going to go with both the presentations today, are there specific strategic partnerships that you can leverage that already have this database of people across the nation or across the world, and or different resources and companies that are in schools bringing different educational programs to students that you might be able to piggyback and scale a little bit faster?
There are. What we would need to do is really look at the models that those pre-existing services have and make sure that they align to what we're doing. Teachers can get online and just search math lesson plans, fractions, something like that, and they're going to get a million results. But are those results going to be helping them to follow the project-based model? That's the big thing there. Just a quick search through math lessons, because it's always math that people are asking for. I found things that were relating back to a show called Cyber Chase, okay? And they were providing this as something that they were very, very proud of. Cyber Chase is a cartoon, and it is for kids that are around 8 years old. So that is great for 8-year-olds. But if kids are working in trigonometry, they need something different. So being able to have a platform where teachers can put in lesson plans that align to this model for others to be able to use is something that is needed. And then being able to have a network of professionals that are able to provide leadership to the kids as they're presenting their models, their design. That is also something that is in pockets, but it's not something that is global. And so what I would like to do is find that global connection.
Sorry, back here. I'm going to clear my throat real fast, you know. So, how do you plan on monetizing this, and what does the sales cycle look like? Who's your decision maker? Are you going to your school board? Can the principal make the decision? And with budgets already being set, typically a year in advance, how do you deal with that?
Okay. Usually, it's going to be a principal or a superintendent that makes the decision as to what I'm doing in the classrooms and how I'm working with them. But the fact that I've got those online classes on there, they're set at a price that if I'm a teacher and my school district cannot afford to bring someone in to do this, then I can take that online class at $100, $125 a month and be done with that course at the end, receive a certificate. So I have the credentials, I have the training, and I had a coach that was just right along with me throughout the entire time instead of reading a book and trying something. So that model would be best for teachers, whereas with a whole district model, it's usually going to be, again, a principal or superintendent that makes that decision.
I've always been disappointed in the gifted program in Springfield Public Schools. We're the largest school district in the state of Missouri. However, only a select few students are allowed to be a part of a global project such as this. And what you have stated so eloquently is that when you have a global project like this, that this horizontally can attract the attention of all children based upon their interest level and driving for that interest level versus looking at deficiencies. If we compare Springfield Public Schools to schools in Columbia, there is a gifted program and global programs in each of the elementary schools, the junior highs and the high schools. It's not for a select group of 30 students, or excuse me, it's 22 in the classroom at Phelps. And to do the Phelps program, you have to have a parent that can drive that child there and back, because you have to provide your own transportation. And in this working world of sandwich generations, that eliminates most of the students who would qualify for the gifted program. So it gets to become selective. Now, I think it's a great program that is at Bass Pro for the 5th grade science program, which is a global project all year long. But again, it's selective. It limits the opportunities to only 25 students. As parents and as taxpayers and grandparents, we should be outraged with that, because it's limiting the possibility of economical growth in our city and state. And we need to speak up. The gifted programs need to be in every one of our schools, because it is this ideal thought that you have presented that is in the gifted programs.
Thank you, ma'am. I am outraged.
Okay.
Calista, thank you.
Thanks.
So in conclusion, you know, we always ask as a community, what is it that we can do for you? If there's one thing to leave here in all of our minds, that when we think of 21 Vision, what is it that we can do to help you?
Part of it is the advocacy that we just talked about. So that's a big part. I am in need of those business professionals that are willing to help feed that database so that I can pair them with classrooms. And then also I discussed the idea of preparing lessons and having that out there for people, we need a user-friendly platform for that. And there are some that exist, some are clunky, and they're not easy. The filters that are in school districts with their network, a lot of them are blocked, and they block social networks. So anytime if a teacher's thinking, okay, well, it's on Pinterest, or I'm sharing via Twitter or whatever, those kinds of things are typically blocked in school districts because we're trying to protect kids. The kids know how to get around it. But so that is one thing that I really do need is a user-friendly platform so that teachers can begin hosting that kind of thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Callista. Hey, some quick announcements. We've got them up on the board here. Idea Wake Up is end of this month, and Jeremy Adams right here. If you're interested, 8:30 a.m. Correct? All right. Also, Refine M. I don't see NK here, but NK is a project management guru, and he's got a promotional here going, $1 for 4 hours of consulting, and he's normally pretty expensive. Isn't that correct, Devin? So that's a deal. So if you're interested, follow up on that. Also, the Real Estate Investors Group meeting is November 20th. If you're interested in making some real estate investment or just connecting, it's a great event. Also, Joel Carlton is 17 today. Joel is Chad's younger brother, and Joel hangs around all the time and does a lot of work that no one sees, so we appreciate that. Okay. Our next presenters, Ellie Schmidley. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. Julie Higgins with I Pour Life.
Thank you so much. So good to be here. My name's Ellie, as you said, thank you. And I Pour Life is a registered 501c3, and we really exist to combat poverty in a holistic way. We do that by extending a hand up rather than a handout. And we extend tools to individuals that they need in order to pull themselves out of poverty. So kind of a snapshot of why we exist. A little history, the seed of I Pour Life was planted in 2009 when Julie, our founder, went to El Salvador. She met a refugee woman named Rosa. And after about an hour conversation, Rosa turned to Julie and begged her to bring her child back to the United States because she didn't want her child to grow up as a refugee. And Julie, being shocked at this act of selfless love that Rosa had for her child, quickly responded with the promise of, I will be back to help your community become sustainable. And Julie didn't quite have any idea what that would turn into, but fast forward 5 years, we have impacted over 12,000 children in the schools of El Salvador. We've also hosted medical clinics across the country. On our timeline for 2015, we will be looking at empowering the students full-time in the schools, as well as setting up a permanent med center in the city that we work in. And for 2016, we hope to start our sustainability program in El Salvador, which takes us across the pond to Ethiopia, which is where we already have our 10 by 10 sustainability program going. There we work in a community of over 100,000 lepers. They live on a trash dump that is about 5 times the size of the Battlefield Mall complex, just to give you an idea. The government had never extended help to these people until this past year, which is really exciting. And what's more exciting is that they chose our program, the 10 by 10 program, in order to help these people. So we are honored to be there. What this program does is it takes 10 individuals, and for 10 weeks we teach them a trade, so they learn a skill. We then teach them financial literacy and life skills that they need. For 10 months, these 10 individuals really become accountability partners and help each other build their businesses as they continue to learn how to sustain the businesses that they've started. To start a woman and her family on a journey to sustainability, it's $1,000. That covers her startup cost for her business. It puts her children in school and also covers all of their medical costs for an entire year. It's pretty incredible what $1,000 can do for someone, change their life. So we love what we're doing with our programs overseas, but really want to look in investing here in Springfield, and I'll let Julie talk about that here in just a few minutes. But iPourLife is really a developing organization. We're not a relief organization. We're a hand up, not a handout. And we understand that there are organizations even here who are incredible at relief, but our focus is really the one-on-one relationship. We believe there's so much power in developing those relationships and really respect what can come out of those relationships and what they can do. You'll see a trend through our programs of cross-generational leadership, which it's taking a mature aged leader and mixing them with someone younger. And you'll see that today in the example of Julie and myself. And really how that works on a day-to-day basis is Julie teaches me and I teach Julie. And you'll see that across the board in all of our programs. It's worked really well for us. So we love our programs. They're going incredibly well, honestly better than we ever thought they would starting out this quickly. But like I said, our heart is in Springfield. We've grown up in Springfield, we love this community and want to invest in this community. So our founder, Julie Higgins, will tell you more about what we do locally.
Thanks for having us here today. We love the Springfield community, and we thought, what a better way to get involved and to capture the heartbeat of our organization is by impacting the homeless and the at-risk youth. So we did that by volunteering at Rare Breed, which is a homeless shelter, and we provided meals every single Friday night just so we could hang out with the homeless youth and really understand their culture. And so it was after we hung out with them that we realized all homeless youth have a story. It's the seeds that are planted in their life that really determine the trajectory of their life, which made me start thinking about the seeds that were planted in my life and how fortunate I was to have the impact of those seeds. So I'm going to take you back to 1986 when I worked in Dallas at EDS, and I was listening to this incredible innovator tell us how he was going to change the world, that his product would change the way we work and the way we function at home. But it was the words that he said that resonated with me that day, that what you think you will become, and if you think you can, you will, and that was Steve Jobs. So let's fast forward now 2 years, and I'm on a plane from Dallas to Springfield, and I had just gotten food poisoning at a restaurant. And so I'm trying to make my way back to the only seat available on the airplane, which is by this businessman, and all his papers are spread out on a seat. And I asked him if he could gather up the papers, and I sat down beside him. Thank goodness I didn't get sick anymore after that. But he and I just talked and conversed the whole way back, and he said he started out as a history teacher, then was a coach, but he believes in impacting the next generation, which are our youth, that will become leaders and will actually change our community and change the world. By the end of the flight, he gave me his business card, and that was John Q. Hammonds, and I worked for him for several years. And his nickname for me while I was working for him was Cookie. And I worked for John Q for several years and then left and started Julie's Chewy's Gourmet Cookies, which we have a cookie for you today whenever you leave. So to talk about seeds that are planted, they take root in our life, and they determine the trajectory of our life. Unfortunate for a lot of homeless and high-risk youth, they have bad seeds that have been planted in their life. So I want to take you to Mike that I met at the homeless shelter. When Mike was 10 years old, he met his dad for the very first time, and the only conversation he ever had with his dad was that you're here because your mom got knocked up. 5 years later, Mike is at home, his mom is working the night shift, and his brother is funneling drugs through the house and trafficking his sister for extra money. Mike is torn up because he feels responsible to his mom and to his younger sister. So Mike leaves the home, he gets a GED, but now he's homeless. He goes to Rare Breed, which is where I met him, and he's diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. And I told Mike I would be paranoid schizophrenic had I had your path. And so it was a seed that Mike planted in my life that I thought, what if we re-diagnose you for the good? What if we discover the top 5 thinking strengths that you have through StrengthsFinder, and we teach you how to use those strengths in the community for the good? How about we teach you how to use those strengths in your own life so you can move forward? And how about we also teach you some basic financial literacy and tell you about our global community so you can become a problem solver for people that live on top of a dump in Ethiopia or live at a refugee community in El Salvador. And I started seeing layers of this wall that was built up around Mike start coming down little by little. And it reminded me recently, I was in Germany with my husband on a business trip, and I was looking at the Berlin Wall, and I noticed that the Berlin Wall has rebar, concrete poured in it, more rebar, more concrete, and there's like 4 layers on this wall. But it was only till the challenge of President Reagan that he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. And the country began gathering around that commission and that great challenge. So today, Ellie and I are here, and we're asking you as Springfield community leaders and individuals, help us tear down some walls in the homeless and the at-risk youth and begin planting seeds for the good to change individuals' lives like Mike.
Bravo. Okay, let's kick it off here with how exactly you guys are making an impact in their lives here in the Springfield community.
We are diagnosing the at-risk youth. We're starting out with 10 coaches, and we will have 10 youth. And I think I can freely say this because I see Perry and Jamie. We'll be working with some kids from the Greene County juvenile system to where we diagnose them for the good by discovering their top 5 strengths through StrengthsFinder. We actually train the coaches how to coach high-risk and homeless youth, because it's not like someone that has had the blessing of having great seeds planted in their life like mine. It's going to take some training. So we will partner with them for 6 months and teach them how to use each strength for the good and how to give that back in their community.
All right, so to me, the most exciting thing is StrengthsFinder. And I know there's a lot that goes involved with that. Could you tell us a little bit about the different programs that you guys have at iPoor Life from Ethiopia and Central America, and how those programs differ from the StrengthsFinder program? And could you tell us a little bit about, focus on the StrengthsFinder, because I think that's the really scaled opportunity that hasn't been built yet, and that you're looking for some specific resources, connections, partnerships to build that out, and what that build out looks like, and how that's able to impact more than just Springfield and Ethiopia, but the nation or the globe at large.
Sure. I'll talk about the StrengthsFinder, you talk about the programs. How about that? Okay. StrengthsFinders, we really thought, why reinvent the wheel? There's already a great resource through Gallup. It's called StrengthsFinders. It's in 23 different languages, and they discover your top 34 or they have 34 strengths, and they discover the top 5. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We actually wanted something that could be universal. So we already take something that is created and proven, and we will create our own curriculum of teaching the coaches. And with that, we will mirror the two and hopefully create a reproducible model that not only can be used in Springfield, that can also be used across the United States. For example, if you were a coach and you signed up with our program and you created a profile, and we already did a background check on you, and say that, and I'll use Devin, say Devin moves to Austin, Texas, and they have the Life Strengths program there, then Devin would already be in our database, and he would already be able to work with an organization because he's already been trained. So we want to work with the Springfield community in helping us create a program that can be used in other places. You want to talk
To
about
specify, the question was how the Life Strengths program works in Springfield?
or the programs in Ethiopia?
In Ethiopia, okay. Our program in Ethiopia, like I said, is 10 individuals, and for the first 10 weeks, it's the training of teaching them a skill. A lot of these, well, almost all of these lepers have never been given the opportunity for a job because their disease is such a social stigma, so they've been tossed out. In fact, 75 years ago, the government told them they could no longer be mixed in with society, and they started dumping trash in between this leper colony and the capital city of Addis. And that really sent a message to them that's twofold of, you truly are outcasts and you're worth no more than trash. So really, this is the first opportunity for these people to lift themselves out of poverty in a dignified way. And we do that through, like I said, the one-on-one relationships, but we start with a small group, so that 10. It creates such a strong accountability group as they start these businesses, and they meet with a social worker 3 times a week. They learn life skills. They have questions about parenting. They have questions about, better ways to get their kids in school. They can meet and convene that way. They have to be completely transparent with their books in that group of 10. So they are conducting their business in really with integrity, and we're setting them up to succeed in doing that. And 2, we journey with them for an entire year, which really by the end of that year, 97% of them can become sustainable on their own and provide for their families with dignity.
How is it funded? How is iPoor Life funded?
It's funded through individuals, grants, and organizations.
That was part of my question was how you're going about seeking out donations, obviously those avenues, and have you applied for Google Nonprofits?
We are Google Nonprofits, yes.
Would you elaborate on what that is, Google Nonprofits?
It's where you work in partnership with Google and that you receive some of their business apps and business programs at no charge.
Okay.
It's a great resource if you are a nonprofit to go ahead and go through the process of doing that.
I actually have 2 questions, but the first one that came to mind was, do you have specific other countries that you're looking at to hopefully go in and work with now? And the second question is, have you started the process of applying for a TED grant?
I want the TED grant really bad. I've been looking at it for a couple of years. And you know what? I was even thinking about, it really takes, nonprofits should really be looked at as a for-profit business. And I've had the fortunate experience of having for-profit businesses, so I understand Business 101. And you really have to approach a nonprofit that way. So with that, you have to prove that your efforts work. And so all of our funding has gone into making our programs work. Then we funded our administrative staff. So that is really my big push this year, is because we have incredible team members, like Ellie. And we have other team members. There's a staff of 5 of us, and we just took on a grant writer yesterday. So I do want that TED grant really, really bad. So I'm hoping this year we can apply for it and get that. We're really about the one-on-one relationship. We are not about massive numbers. We're about that one individual. So we're staying thus far in Ethiopia and in El Salvador. But as the doors open up and we have the resources and we have the individuals that can be on the ground and partner, I really believe in partnering with people in the country, because I want to teach the people how to give back to their own people and use those key leadership and professional skills to be able to do the work as well. Good question, though.
Right now, it's a big trend for social entrepreneurship. You have TOMS and you have feed bags, and this idea of basically half going towards, or whatever it would be, to fund nonprofits. Have you guys looked at doing like a sister company, possibly, or working with some entrepreneurs to create something like that to help offset, so you're not solely tied to donations and or grants, that you can actually, use what you're doing because you're making a huge impact? People are really wanting to be a part of that now, and possibly creating that actual for-profit business with it.
You know what? We haven't come up with anything like that yet. And here's a thought that I have. Like our women, I just got the results from some of our women that just finished the program and now are in their entrepreneurship. They went from making 30 cents a day to making $9 a day. And in Ethiopia, that's huge. They've become millionaires overnight. But we don't want them to create a product that we are reliant on selling. So that's bringing in a Western mindset, and I love TOMS, and I love the other ones that make the little hats. Who makes the knitted hats? Crochet Kits. Love that, love all their products, but I don't feel that that's the path that we're supposed to take, because we want those women to create products or be able to sell products that their own community can support.
What are the requirements to be a coach, and how do you partner up that coach with the youth?
There is a place on our website at the bottom of the page. It actually says contact us, and you can fill out that form. Tell us how you would like to get involved with us. We will contact you. We'll have an interview and also do a background check on you, because we want you to be really good to be a coach with one of our youth. We want to provide a hand up to those youth. So if you would like to get involved with us, even serving in one of our global countries, then you can contact us on the page.
Hi. It's a great work what you're doing. Thank you very much. You'd mentioned that you're more one-on-one with an individual teaching them, but I'm trying to get a number on the larger scale. Say over in Ethiopia, what are your results for the entire camp there? Because when you teach one person, they go and they teach other people, and you don't really have to branch out to everybody. What are some numbers that you have seen so far?
There's a stat from the UN that if one woman is empowered and her family is able to, or she's able to provide for her family with sustainability and dignity, she will go on to impact 4 other families. So we know that number is there, which is exciting for us because then, you know, you can't quite measure those results, but you know it's happening. So it kind of multiplies itself. That's the really great part about these groups, is that when you're teaching them in groups to really build each other up and do life with each other and care for each other, rather than I'm starving and you're my neighbor, but I'm gonna have to steal from you. When you start teaching them to work together, that just kind of multiplies throughout. So we launched, remind me the number, in June in Ethiopia.
14 women.
14 women, which is so exciting. So we know those women at the end of this time will go on to impact 4 other families that we won't even touch, you know, directly.
Each quarter we plan on launching 25 women. And the great thing is, Amsala, we call her our rock star. Her fingers are like this because she is a leper and she's HIV positive. But it was the difference that her neighbors saw in her that had put the desire in their heart to go register with the government. And that's the good thing about partnering with the government, because we're all on the same team. So for one of the people in our community to be a part of our program, they have to register with the government to show that they're not receiving any support from another NGO, which is a non-governmental organization. They're not receiving funds from a Westerner for sustainability, and that they're willing to do what it takes to be a part of the program.
I understand the impact with female, but do you only work with female, or are you working with males as well?
You know what, we love to keep families together, and that's one of our missions, is to keep husband, wives together, or families just together. Unfortunately, in developing countries, it's just culturally, not saying here in the States, but men abandon the women. And so in the leper colony of 100,000 people, 96% of the families are single moms.
You were talking.
I have to say, this is our board chair, Keela Davis. We're so glad
I'm
she's
planted
here.
a little bit. I wanted to throw out there, we were talking about funding a little bit, and one of the things there's an event coming up soon for fundraising. I wanted to see if you'd take just a moment and share with everyone what's going to be going on here locally in just about 2 weeks.
Yes, it's very exciting. Does anyone watch The Voice in here? Voice watchers? Yeah. Season 3, anyone remember Des Duran? He was a really popular finalist on The Voice. Super talented guy. Julie, being the incredibly networked woman that she is, happened to somehow meet Des's father, and he ended up coming to El Salvador with us this past year and did assemblies in the schools, really empowered the students, performed. It was incredible. Well, he really just put it out there. I would love to help you guys in any way. So he is coming to Springfield November 1st at the Galois Theater. I think Julie's going to pull up some info on our site. It says there's a concert tab, so you can find any more information there. But Des will be here along with Allison Stoner, who is from Step Up Movies, Cheaper by the Dozen. She's really our goodwill ambassador for Ethiopia, and she kind of spreads the word about our programs there. But they will both be here performing November 1st at the Galois at 8 p.m. And really, most nonprofits do a fundraising dinner, which is a very effective way to fundraise, but we feel like we're missing out on a younger demographic just to get them engaged and involved, and to really open up their minds to be more globally minded people. Because when you have global-minded people locally, they start acting local because they know there's a need everywhere. So that's really our goal in doing this. It'll all ages, family-friendly. All the proceeds go to support our efforts here locally and also abroad. The tickets range from like $15, $20, and $30 because there's merchandise included with like t-shirts and bracelets. So any of that info can be found on our website at ipourlife.org/concert. But I would say that is a massive way that you can help us and also have fun doing it, and bring your kids, friends. It'll be an exciting event. Thanks for asking.
And they can get tickets online.
Oh, you can also get tickets online. Sorry. Thanks, Julie.
I want to hear more about the skills and trades that you're teaching the women. I know you said that I would love to hear a little bit about what you're teaching them to be able to sustain themselves for the future.
Well, that's the really cool thing is that it's self-discovery. It's not like us, like if I had to support myself on sewing, I mean, I hot glue buttons on. So if I had to depend on myself to sew to be sustainable, I might as well go beg. So what we do is we do self-discovery, and we discover with the woman, what are you good at? What comes natural to you? And we discover that a lot of the women are natural entrepreneurs, but there are very few that are trade driven. They do enjoy working for someone else, and they do enjoy someone saying, here's what you need to do today. But it's through our self-discovery classes in the first 10 weeks that we discover that. So they go through cooking, they go through computer, we see if they can read, do they have any type of financial literacy? Can you work a computer? Do you know how to even go out and talk to people? What are your skill set? And then from that, we determine what type of trade or what type of entrepreneur path they should take. That's a great question, though.
Excellent presentation. As we always wrap up, how can we as a community help you?
Well, you can help us by becoming a coach if you would like to, and you can do that through Contact Us. We are looking for funding for our local project, and that would be anywhere between $75,000 to $100,000 to get us kicked off and launched, because we are seeing that it's going to be a great success, and with that, we should be able to pick up about 250 kids from the different organizations and agencies locally that have already expressed an interest in us partnering with their youth. And so with that funding also has to come coaches that believe in impacting the next generation.
That's great. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, how about one more round of applause for female entrepreneurs making a difference in the community? That's great. Ladies, you all did an excellent job today. It was really powerful to hear you guys and all the conviction that you have making a difference. For everybody else in the room, thank you for coming. We'll be here same time, same place next week. And just to put a little bug in your ear, we have a special guest presenter coming next week that I think you guys will all very much enjoy seeing. So we'll see you again next week.